Congresswoman, as of this recording, the government is shut down. What's your instant reaction? There's a lot of finger pointing. Republicans are saying y'all shut down the government. Y'all are saying Republicans. What is your reaction?
I mean, the reality is that the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. And so everything that happens from this poor economy to the terrible decisions around tariffs to the record number of farmers that are filing for bankruptcy to the illegal firings to the corruption as it relates to persons like Tom Homan to the unreasonable prosecutions of those like James Comey. Let me be clear, there is only one person and one administration that this falls on. There's only one party that controls it all, including the Supreme Court. Sadly enough, they have a significant majority on the Supreme Court as well. And so all the pain that people are feeling right now, it falls squarely on the Republicans.
Senate Republican leadership said that Democrats are trying to get too much. I know Democrats have been making so far the shutdown about health care. Are Democrats asking for too much when it comes to Obamacare era type benefits?
I do believe that they probably do believe that. I mean, when you think about the likes of who sits in the US Senate, you have a Joni Ernst who basically told her constituents, you're going to die anyway. So clearly, they don't care about doing what the vast majority of Democrats care about, which is actually making sure that their constituents, Democratic constituents, as well as the Republican constituents, if I'm being honest, have a better life. That is what it is to say you're going to enter public service. It means that you are going to look out for the financial wealth, the healthcare, the educational wealth. You are going to look out for all of these kind of very basic things. And sadly enough, you can't do anything if you just can't live. And some people, we know many people, are anticipated to die because of the big ugly bill. This is not hyperbole. This is exactly what came out of the recommendations, or I don't really know how to phrase what they do, but basically, we have an office that estimates the cost. And I think that this is the first time that they have estimated cost in the form of lives. Now, obviously, none of us have a magic wand, but I've already received messages from people saying that if they lose the subsidy as it relates to the Affordable Care Act, that they won't be able to afford their health care. And as a Texan, we know that Texas leads in uninsured, having over 5 million people that are already uninsured because we've failed to expand upon Medicaid. So doing this is only a double whammy for those in my district. To give an idea, approximately 40,000 people in my district stand to potentially lose their health care if we don't fight back in this moment. And honestly, the fact that they're saying we're asking for too much, my question is, what is the value of a life? And having this come from the quote unquote pro-life party is pretty astounding.
Well, this is a stare off, right? This is a face off. This happens every so often in Congress. Hasn't happened in a couple of years, but who gains more from this shutdown?
So, to be clear, it's been more than a couple of years because for the last 4 years, we had a responsible president who understood the importance of negotiating and working to get things done. That president was Joe Biden. The last time we had a shutdown was under this same president. So, there is a trend. The last time our economy tanked, it was under this same president as well. And so, here's the deal. There will be a lot of partisan talk. But listen to the man himself. If you go back a few years before he ever ran for president, Donald Trump himself said that if there is a government shutdown, it falls squarely on the president. He said, these are his words, this is not AI, where he said that it is a failure of leadership for the person that is at the top. He said it starts at the top. We also know that Donald Trump said that they want to do things such as healthcare, and we're going to cut those programs. That is what we're going to do if we're in a shutdown. So, I mean, he is telling us, he is telegraphing exactly what he wants to do. I mean, just listen to the Democrats. Somehow, some way, he is saying exactly what we're saying. Ultimately, this will come down to what the constituents want. If constituents start calling their representatives, Democrats and Republicans, and telling them that this is not worth it, then fine. If they continue to call and say no, fight like hell, then that's exactly what we're going to do. You have to understand the other part of this. Um, Democrats have entered into good faith negotiations, such as when Joe Biden was in office and he was finishing his term. Unfortunately, the Republicans have proven that they are not good faith actors. We know that there was a continuing resolution that was passed under the Biden Harris administration in December of last year. But we also know that when it came down to it, the Republicans decided to agree with rescinding the very things the Democrats had actually negotiated for. They did not defend the agreement. And so, what assurances do we have that even if we enter into an agreement, that this administration won't do what they consistently have done? They have impounded funds. They have stopped the flow of dollars that had already been laid out and agreed upon. We have no assurances because the only assurance, actually, I won't say we have no assurance. The only assurance that we have is that this administration is not good at honoring their word, not when it comes to a negotiation, and definitely not when it comes to the promises that they made when it came down to getting into office. I can remember a time when the president said that he would bring down the cost of food, the cost of housing, the overall everyday cost that most middle class Americans are facing. He said he was going to do that on day one. It hasn't happened. It's gone the opposite direction. He also said that he was going to end all wars on day one. It hasn't happened. In fact, he may have made things worse. Not may have, he has. We know that he has decided to go out and engage in actions that put us at risk because he's decided to randomly bomb um, boats that are in international waters and things like that. So, frankly, he's not honored any of his word, not to his base. We can talk about the Epstein files and the fact that he said that he was going to release those. And he's fighting tooth and nail right now to make sure that they don't come out. The only assurance that we have is that we can't rely on his word.
Speaking of the president, a bit off topic, but segue into my last couple of questions about free speech and just what's happened in the last couple of weeks. This week, the president shared a post that appeared to be AI, depicting the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, with a sombrero and mustache and changing Chuck Schumer's voice. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's another racist, immature, unacceptable act done by this president. He continues to drag the office down. Not only are Americans looking around and ashamed at his behavior, but the rest of the world is watching. I mean, we're supposed to be world leaders, and this is what he's spending his time on. Again, there are people right now that are saying they don't know if they're going to be able to afford their health care, their life-saving health care. There are people that are saying that they don't know if their children are going to be able to receive the healthcare that they need once the big ugly bills cuts completely go into effect. There are people that are losing their jobs because of the research dollars that have been cut. There are people that are losing their jobs because they worked and did things such as work on January 6th or work on the investigations into the president himself. The only people that have benefited thus far from this administration have been people within Trump's orbit. We know that somehow he has amassed probably more wealth than he's ever really had because we know for the longest he was putting on and inflating numbers. In fact, he got in trouble because he was consistently inflating his wealth. Yet we don't fully understand how much he has actually sold the American people out at this point with foreign governments, with the untraceable crypto deals that he is making. It is really sad that we have a president that has decided that he wants to berate the highest ranking Democrat, which happens to be the first African American to ever hold that post, instead of focusing on doing what the American people probably would prefer, is to have someone who is singularly focused on making their lives better. And a government shutdown, just like historically, when he had the last shutdown, which was a record breaking number of days, it only cost us more money. So, you know what? I just want the president to get serious. I want the president to stop engaging in racist tropes and to focus on doing right, even if he believes the only right there is to do is to focus on the people that elected him. Somehow, if he does right by them, he will also end up doing right by others.
And my last question to you, young Democrats and just Democrats in general, they listen to you and take what you say to heart. With that said, following the murder of Charlie Kirk, where is the line that should not be crossed when it comes to free speech? And what in your opinion should be said in the days and weeks and months following Charlie Kirk's murder, and what is too much to be said? I mean, I know some students have been kicked out of college for comments that have been made. What's the fine line, in your opinion, when it comes to free speech and
Well,
consequences?
first of all, I don't think anything that anyone has said in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death should have been actionable in any way, because we know for sure that Charlie Kirk was not at risk of any harm whatsoever. And that's usually when we cross the line. Usually, when we look at the law and what is unacceptable is anything that could lead to harm for people in some way. So, usually, the example that they give from law school is yelling fire when you're in a movie theater. You yell that out, and it's not real, and people start running. There's chaos. There is harm that may ensue. Engaging in radicalizing or supporting or gassing people to go and participate in an insurrection that then results in property damage and physical damage and harm to police officers, that crosses the line. Doing things like being honest about who Charlie Kirk was, or even using his very words and literally just posting his words. If you didn't have a problem with his words when he said them, then you shouldn't have a problem with someone else repeating his words in his death. I've never seen people complain when, say, we use quotes of Martin Luther King or Maya Angelou or Shirley Chisholm for that fact. We don't get in trouble. They said those things when they were alive. And then if somebody repeats those things, they don't end up losing their ability to attend their school or they don't lose their job. I think that the fact that they feel like the words are actionable at all tells us that the words were inflammatory in nature. And maybe someone should have said something about those words when Charlie Kirk was alive and uttered them. But crossing the line looks like a state representative in Arizona saying that my colleague, Pramila Jayapal, should be executed. That is crossing the line. Doing things, here recently there was a MAGA influencer that had some choice words. For me, I will be perfectly honest. Those words were problematic for a lot of reasons. But if I'm being perfectly honest, they did not cross the line as it relates to free speech. Her free speech affords her an opportunity to say the ugly things that she said about me. And as someone who was the target of those ugly words, I can tell you that her ugly words are protected by free speech. Her crossing over and um, uttering anything that would usher in violence, advocating for harm to come to me would be completely different. And that would be crossing the line.